Should trans women be automatically removed from all women's prisons all the time?
No, I don't think they should. What I do think is that each should be risk assessed on an individual basis. I think it's...
Genuine question. What is this person's sex and gender? This person's sex and gender are both just British. She's a woman? Man, what is it with TERFs, huh? 50-year-old lesbian? Listen, I have known many 50-year-old lesbians, or thereabout. I don't know if they're exactly 50. This is crazy. It's like a perfectly androgynous... Okay.
Depends on a lot of factors. And the prison service is, my life was spent doing risk assessments. And, I think based on that risk assessment depends on where that person should go.
But the Supreme Court might actually check, the ruling by the Supreme Court might say, actually, what all prisons have to be. No one who's not biologically female should be in a women's prison.
Well, they may well do that, but I could imagine that there will be several prisoners who will probably have their solicitors on that and challenge that ruling. Look, I'm not an expert on trans people. All that I know is that everybody should be treated with humanity and decency.
Unambiguously a more progressive position on trans people than the Labour Party. Maybe she thinks that trans women shouldn't necessarily go to men's prisons because she's aware of the fact that if she commits crimes in the future, they might use that against her. TERF stereotype hitting again. Yup. Sorry, got distracted. Why are we being mean? Is she a TERF? Well, she works with reform, so could derive from that whatever you like, I suppose. Farage is woke. He said it too?
When it comes to trans women in prisons, isn't it interesting that we run our country with people who become ministers, who generally have absolutely no idea of the subject matter that they're talking about? I've personally never worked in a prison, so I can't answer it, but I think you'll find that the answer that you'll get from somebody who has worked in prisons at the highest possible level is, I think, basically it's about risk assessment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we all know what the law is. I'm not going to go back over that yet again.
Hello again.
But
I can't believe it. The Reform Party is unambiguously taking a more progressive position on trans people than Labour. Can somebody explain how the f*** is this happening? How in the United Kingdom are they getting outflanked by Reform? They're not. I thought it was just a one-off thing. My assumption was, okay, so maybe this lady isn't as Hitlerite as the majority of the Reform Party, so she made like one-off statement or whatever, but it's not reflective of the party. But now Farage is saying it.
To my mind, everybody who is in prison deserves to be treated with humanity and decency, and that includes female prisoners and it includes trans prisoners. Everything in the prison service is risk assessed, and I am sure that the prison service will tie itself up in knots over the trans issue, just like many other public sectors have. And as Nigel said earlier, we are at the beginning, and that is something that we will need to speak about clearly.
Yeah, but in terms of the problems in prisons, it's a relatively small one.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Tenny Diver, Telegraph.
It is a relatively small one in like a demographic percentage of the population kind of way. It's a pretty big deal if you're a trans woman or a trans man. To be clear, we talk about trans women, trans men. I don't think trans men, I think most trans men would probably not like to be thrown into male prisons. Then we're talking like, let's be real here. We're not talking about validity. If you're transgender and you're being sentenced and you're being sent to prison, we're not really talking about validity or like the state legitimizing your identity. We're talking about keeping you away from men who will rape you to death, basically. That's like the actual, like, let's be real here. Trans men and trans women probably both want to be in the women's prison for purely practical reasons. It doesn't have much to do with, respecting your identity. And you can acknowledge this even as a transphobe. Like, you could say you don't think you can change your gender. You don't think a man can become a woman or a woman can become a man. You could think that and still go, okay, but I still don't support, like, unlimited rape in men's prisons, so I'm gonna not facilitate that. This is what happens when trans women are put in men's prisons. Yeah, I've seen the article too. It doesn't happen that often, you know, so there aren't too many articles describing it, but I imagine that these situations are pretty representative. It's one of the reasons why I don't do the whole be gay, do crime spiel that much with you people, because half of my audience is trans, and, you know, I don't want you guys to... Dude, The Independent keeps wanting to show me Anna Kasparian having a tampon thrown at her. It keeps autoplaying to this bit. I've never even seen it. I've never seen it. I just see the thumbnail on Twitter. What happened?
I'm not putting words in your mouth. Please don't put words in my mouth.
You can talk when I'm done talking, and that's how this will work. No?
But if you straw man me, and argue that I'm making arguments that I didn't make, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you if you lie about what I'm saying.
So you're a grown-up when you argue. Got it.
I am a grown-up, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you seem very emotional, and I threw you a tissue just in case. I also have a tampon in case you need a tampon.
Adam, she's going to beat the shit out of you.
That's fine.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen the clip. I assumed that he would have, like, launched it at her, not like tossed it at her, you know? Okay, that's a little bit less sensational than I was expecting. I mean, it's extremely misogynistic.
It's a tampon, just in case.
Oh, God, look at what he's wearing. Red pocket square, white dress shirt, business suit, too slim, no tie, 2 buttons undone, white sneakers, no show socks. Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Listen, I'm not deterred by your ridiculous juvenile attacks. Let's have an argument about the actual facts.
Israel is fighting terrorists.
I don't know. It seemed like she kind of mogged him here. Credit where credit's due. It seems like she held frame in this interaction, you know? You gotta acknowledge it. Fascist fashion? Yeah, probably. Why is it always gross old guys clinging to their youth who act like this? Because I think juvenile misogyny is a big part of a lot of, like, young men, like boys, you know? Mental model, right? The, like, ew, they have cooties. A lot of guys never grow up from that, you know? It's crazy to me, and pardon me for being a bit blue with the humor here, but it's crazy to me that there are guys who are, like, squicked out by girls having periods or whatever. I don't know. I feel like on the hierarchy of stuff being gross, pooping is probably grosser than having a period, and everyone does that. You have to, like, you've already accepted that. I don't understand what you're, like, if you can get over that, the fact that happens, I don't understand how anything else is getting to you. Periods are worse? No, they're not. No, they're not. Grow up. Pooping is obviously grosser than a person having a period. It's poop. Okay, this is Ignite. I shouldn't have brought this up, knowing the demographics of my chat. I'm not... What are we even talking about right now? I genuinely don't remember what we were talking... Reform trans prisons. The Telegraph is paywalled. What is this?
I mean, when you were in your office back then in the 90s, I mean, there was never a dull day as prisons minister, of course, and, you know, file after file, and, you know, for your eyes only... Is
this a TV channel? Talk TV? Is this a thing? What is this? Former prisons minister Anne Widdecombe says trans women should not be allowed in women's prisons under a reform UK government. Oh, the infighting! The turf reform infighting.
Bits of paper coming across the desk at a rapid rate of knots. It's not meant to be an easy job, you know, it's a challenging job and you have to keep on top of it. But was it ever like this?
It certainly got to a point where we had...
Frankly, I find this highly objectionable. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need. At some level, I just cannot comprehend why so many people want trans women to be to death in prisons, not safe for work. I think there's a lot that goes into it, right? The fact, so a lot of people view trans women as men who are sexual deviants, and they think that in prison would just be like a fitting punishment for that sort of thing. A lot of people also see, even if they won't admit it, they see trans women as women, but they hate women, especially somebody who would make the choice to be a woman rather than just be one by default. So sexual violence against women is just something they're generally okay with. Like, I think a lot of the people who are okay with trans women getting to death in a men's prison would also be okay if, I don't know, if Putin was like Putin does a press conference and he's like, since Western gender activists think that you can choose your gender, we will experiment and put 100 feminists in men's prison and see if they can choose to be men. And then a bunch of Western Republicans, or American Republicans, will be like, dude, that's based. Yeah, because you can't choose your gender. Losers, like they would love that shit too. So I think that a lot of it is just like they like sexual violence as a punishment for women and for just political enemies in general. Fascists love using rape as a weapon, right? Pinochet had like dogs raping political enemies as a tool of corrective forces used by fascist governments everywhere. Bukele, right, in El Salvador, he had that. There's massive sexual violence in Sikot. Against that gay hairdresser, that Venezuelan. The Nazis did it. Tons and tons of reports of Nazi guards raping Jews. Romani, Slavs, and other undesirables, homosexuals, of course. The IDF does it. The IDF have their rape camps. If you accept that, like, fascism is an expression of psychosexual angst, which I fully believe, it makes sense that would be their preferred tool. Obviously murder is the number one like tool of violence that people defer to because it's the most final, ultimate way of removing a person from the table, I guess. But second to that, sexual violence is up there. I don't know, it comes up a lot. Grim topic. Luckily, to my knowledge, prison rape is not as widespread in UK prisons. Yeah, but that's a low bar. It's not as bad as in American prisons because American prisons are dungeons. In the UK prisons, there's still a lot of, just less of it. It's definitely like a low bar situation. Murder ends the issue, but I think rape is a worse threat and dehumanizing. Okay, we don't need to compare two bad bitches. Okay, we don't need to get into the classic. Well, I think murder is worse than rape. I think is worse than murder. What the purpose of this argument, I think, is just to make good people upset at each other for literally no reason. How about, pardon me for my radical centrism, let's say they're both bad. Debate slop topic. That is a debate slop topic right there. Oh yeah, 100%. That's a shitty power scaling debate. 20 murderers versus 20 rapists. That would be a crazy jubilee. Or like 5v5, because that's their like equal number face off. That would be crazy. Okay, you know how that would end up going? Okay, I'm telling you how that would end up going, okay? 4 of the murderers and 4 of the rapists would be relatively defensible. I say relatively, right? Like 4 of the murderers would be like crime of passion, like freak out, I've been reforming for 20 years. And 4 of the rapists would be guys like, yeah, listen, I drank way too much at a party in college and I genuinely had a worse understanding of consent back then, etc., etc. Like, you would get that. But on both teams, there'd be one guy who's just the devil. And the actual turnabout wouldn't be the murderers versus the rapists. It would be the 4 murderers and rapists who aren't the devil against the one in their team who was. There'd be some guy there who's like a serial killer and someone else there who's like an Epstein type or whatever, like serial rapist, pedophile. And it would be the 4 around them being like, hold on, this guy does not represent me. That would be good content. 9 murderers and 1 secret rapist. Yes! And the Jubilee host is like, how did it feel to take a life? And everyone's given their answers and trying to suss each other out, like which guy looks like he hasn't quite, like he's done bad things, but he hasn't actually killed anybody. That would be really good. See, Jubilee could be doing good for the world if they wanted to.